Hi to you all and welcome to this video. This is the 7th video in the self-esteem series and I'm going to be talking about personal boundaries. What are personal boundaries? Personal boundaries are the rules, if you like, that we have for how people may or may not treat us. Things they may say or may not say and things they may or may not do, or ways in which they may or may not act towards us. Personal boundaries matter. You cannot have somebody treating you or speaking to you however they feel like it. We set personal boundaries because that is a way in which we protect ourselves, our person, and our property. We protect our well-being, our emotions, and our feelings. We protect our time and we protect our energy. People who have healthy, high self-esteem have good personal boundaries and they insist that people respect their personal boundaries. People who have very low self-esteem will very often have no personal boundaries whatsoever and they will allow people to behave towards them in pretty much any way they like. On the other hand, other people with low self-esteem who tend more towards the aggressive, abusive, narcissistic, arrogant side are more likely to trample over personal boundaries. Okay, personal boundaries are good because they teach other people to treat us with respect and decency, and we also learn that we have a right to be treated with respect and decency. Okay, so now, do you need to put some personal boundaries in place? I'm going to go through a couple of examples, things I just want you to think about, for you to think about, do I need to put personal boundaries in place? Now, the first thing to consider is, am I somebody who is always doing what everybody else wants me to do and which I hate doing? Okay, are you a person who does things which other people ask you to do, which you absolutely hate doing? Now, in the interests of relationships and friendships, it cannot always be your way, and it cannot always be about what you want. But if you are always being asked to do things you absolutely hate doing, you need to set a personal boundary. The second thing to consider, are you somebody who avoids people for fear of them asking you for favors? People who are not good at setting personal boundaries will very often just do any favors, and other people will imagine they can keep asking you to do things for them, even things you don't want to do. So if you fear coming across people, if you go out of your way to avoid people because you think they will ask you for favors, you probably also need to set some personal boundaries. Okay, the next thing to think about is, do you fear conflict? Note, I didn't say hate. Most people do not like conflict. And that's probably a good thing, because otherwise, heck, we'd be at war all the time. If you're absolutely terrified of conflict, you fear conflict, you're not going to be able to set in place personal boundaries because you won't be able to confront somebody who has trampled all over one of your boundaries or violated one of your boundaries. If you really fear conflict or confrontation, you probably do need to set some personal boundaries, but you may also need to deal with your fear of conflict. Okay, a fourth aspect is, are you somebody who can't say no? If you are, you probably need some personal boundaries. Saying no is actually good some of the time. The next thing to consider is, are you somebody who hates disappointing people? Most of us don't want to go around disappointing people the whole time, but sometimes you have to do this. If you absolutely hate disappointing people, you might need to set some personal boundaries. And then the sixth and last one is your needs. Where do your needs fall? Are you somebody who always puts their needs last? Once again, it cannot always be about you in relationships and friendships, and it cannot always be you first. But if you are somebody who always puts their needs last and who never ever gets their needs met, then you need to think about setting a personal boundary. Okay, now let's say you've decided I do need to set personal boundaries. And there are a whole lot of reasons other than what I've just gone through that you think you need to set personal boundaries. Okay, firstly, to do this, I think it is better if you take a piece of paper, write down cases where you need personal boundaries, that you write them on an iPad or an iPhone or somewhere. Don't just leave it in your head. Actually work it out and write them down. So to start off with, I want you to think about times when people have said and done things that were not acceptable to you. These indicate you need a personal boundary. You can also think of other people you've seen, people you know, people around you, where other people have spoken to them or acted towards them in ways where you think, no ways am I going to let somebody behave like that. So you're going to sit down, and you don't have to do it in one setting. You can start and then perhaps come back to it a bit later on or another day and add to them and think about them. But you're going to write down what is not acceptable behavior from people. And behavior includes words. So make a list of them. And then you're going to actually write down what is the personal boundary. So people may not. Now let's look at some possible examples of personal boundaries. And these are just a very few examples. You can have a whole lot more. Let's suppose you are in your office. You've got 2 very important deadlines and you are tearing your hair out because there's just, you don't know how you're going to finish this. And somebody knocks on your door, opens it, comes in and starts talking to you. A personal boundary could sound like, I am really busy, I have a whole lot of deadlines, I will message you or I will phone you when I am finished. Okay, another personal boundary might be that somebody you know, either well or not very well, but somebody invites you out for dinner on Tuesday night and you're not free on Tuesday night. You can always say to the person, thank you for your invitation. I really appreciate the thought. Unfortunately, I'm not free on Tuesday evening. Or you may be invited away for a weekend. Let's say a whole lot of your friends are having a weekend away, but you are exhausted. You are fatigued. You are tired. You've worked long hours. You're feeling a bit nauseous and headachy, and really you wanted this weekend just to absolutely relax by yourself. You can say to somebody, thank you for your invitation. That sounds like it would be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I am so tired and so fatigued and so exhausted that I want to spend this weekend by myself. Just relaxing. Okay, another possibility could be that you're talking to somebody on the phone and they start shouting and screaming and yelling at you and whatever. You can always say to this person, I can't talk to you when you scream and shout at me. If you carry on shouting at me, I am going to put the phone down. As another example, consider you're having a discussion, or you're sitting there, or you're standing around and people come up and they start talking about things that make you feel very uncomfortable. And it could be racist things, it could be gossip, it could be sexist, it could be demeaning things about a person or a group, and you are just not comfortable at all. Okay, you can say to them, please don't discuss those topics in my presence. I don't want to discuss such issues. And then as a final example, somebody puts you on the spot. Now, I have a lot of clients who tell me this happens to them. In almost every single circumstance, if somebody asks for something or wants you to do something, it is okay to sit there and wait. You don't have to sit there and give an immediate answer. And forcing somebody to give an immediate answer is often a sign of bullying. So you could say to them, I need to think about that. I will get back to you. Now, once you set personal boundaries, you must enforce them. If you set a personal boundary, somebody violates it and you do nothing, you have taught that person that they can continue to violate that personal boundary. So let's look at the last example. You want to set a personal boundary around your time. So if you're at work and there's a meeting, you say to people, you set the boundary and you communicate the boundary. If you are going to be late, and this is more than 5 or 10 minutes late, please let me know. Contact me, message, phone, email, whatever it is, so that I know what's happening. And okay, you've communicated this boundary, and you've communicated that this boundary is because for both of you, in fact, the time is important and you want to respect other people's time, and you want to have other people respect your time because you're busy. And let's say somebody violates it. Okay, you're actually sitting there waiting, and 45 minutes later, they actually pitch up. Firstly, ascertain if this was in their control. I mean, there might have been a hijacking, there might have been a robbery, there might have been a roadblock, there might have been an accident, who knows. But if you have ascertained that actually they could have let you know, and nothing untoward happened, you need to express your disappointment. You need to express that it's not okay that they violated your personal boundary. So you can say something like, I am very angry and upset that you didn't let me know you were going to be late. This is 45 minutes of time in a really, really, really busy day that I've lost, and I really can't actually afford to lose it. Now, when you are challenging somebody who's violated a personal boundary, you still want to be respectful and polite. Okay, disrespect and being cruel and unkind is never acceptable. But you do need to be firm. It's no good sitting there and going, well, it doesn't matter, etc. Because if you say that, if you sort of wishy-washy in the fact that they've violated a boundary, you are telling them once again the boundary doesn't matter. So respectfully and nicely, you need to be very clear that you are extremely unhappy and that it is not acceptable that the boundary was violated, because then they will get the message. And you don't have to shout and scream this at people. You can do that in a respectful way. But if you want your personal boundaries respected, you have got to make it very clear that they matter and that it is not acceptable that people violate them. Okay, so that's personal boundaries. That's our video for today. Go off and think about them and put them in place. Having personal boundaries will raise your self-esteem. In fact, having people violate your personal boundaries can in fact damage your self-esteem and lower your self-esteem. So you want personal boundaries in place because it will improve your self-esteem, it will improve your confidence and assertiveness. And it will get you, as well as the other person, to behave well. Somebody who is forever going around treating you badly is not actually acting in their best interests. You want people to respect your personal boundaries because it's in your interest, and actually it is in their interest too. Allowing people to behave badly is not good, even if they are adults. From my side, I hope you have a wonderful week. And until we meet again, goodbye from me.